Daniel Sports Central be giving you guys our updated college football bowl projections as we look forward to week 9. We are headed into the final weekend of October. And so with that, we'll be taking a look into the postseason here today, what things could look like once we get to December and this upcoming bowl season. So with that, let's get started looking at the Bahamas Bowl. We got Jacksonville State and Northern Illinois. This was something I do want to start the video with this. This was something that was brought up last week. Of course, Jacksonville State and James Madison, most notably, both teams are ineligible for bowl season this year because of their transition from FCS to FBS. But the thing is, though, this bowl season, there's a pretty good chance we're not going to have enough 6-6 teams to get to bowl season. So obviously, then you start putting in 5 and 7 football teams into bowl slots. However, having James Madison and Jacksonville State both far and beyond 6 wins does put them in line above any 5 and 7 teams. So despite Jacksonville State and James Madison being ineligible, technically they can still make it to bowl season in the case we don't have enough 6-6 teams. So that does put Jacksonville State in the Bahamas Bowl against Northern Illinois. New Orleans Bowl, we got Liberty and Marshall. Cure Bowl, we got Air Force and Ohio. Air Force is definitely a contender for the New Year's Six bowl bid right now out of the group of 5. But as of right now, I've got a different team in there in Air Force in the Cure Bowl. New Mexico Bowl, we got UNLV and New Mexico State. LA Bowl, we got Arizona and Wyoming. I think Arizona finds a way to bowl season. They've got a tough schedule down the stretch, but they're actually a pretty impressive 4-3 team right now. I know they've taken 3 losses, but they've been competitive this season. I think they find a way to win 2 more and get to bowl season and take on one of the best teams in the Mountain West this season in Wyoming. Independence Bowl, we got Texas Tech and Washington State. Texas Tech kind of similar to Arizona. I've got them projected for 6. I think they find a way. They're talented enough to do it. And they take on a Washington State team I got projected for 8. They've got a strong offense and a couple of bumpy losses, and October's been tough on the Cougars, but I think they find a way to get a few more wins down the stretch. Troy and Toledo in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Then we got SMU and Texas State in the Frisco Bowl. Boca Raton Bowl, we got South Alabama and Syracuse. Syracuse, I got projected for 7. Gasparilla Bowl, Mississippi State and Georgia State. Miss State, I got projected for 6. They're kind of on the edge as well, but I think they find a way. And Georgia State, a talented team this season. That would be a good matchup. And then Birmingham Bowl, Auburn and Rice. I've got Auburn at 7. I think they find a way to play pretty well down the stretch and take on a Rice team that's been impressive this season. Camilla Bowl, we got Memphis and Western Kentucky. Armed Forces Bowl, Iowa State and Army. Honestly, it's very surprising putting Iowa State in a bowl game, but I mean, especially considering where this team has been at points this year. And I mean, the projections heading into the season as well for Iowa State were very low. This team was expected to be a bottom feeder in the conference, but turns out they've been halfway decent this season. I've got them up to 6 wins and taking on Army in the Armed Forces Bowl. Idaho Potato Bowl, we got Bowling Green and Colorado State. 68 Ventures Bowl, UTSA and Georgia Southern. Las Vegas Bowl, Nebraska and Utah. And I've got Nebraska at 6 wins this season, but the thing is, I mean, I've got Utah projected for 9, and that's something that's not very, I mean, usually you see a ton of depth out of the SEC and the Big Ten, but it turns out you could argue the Pac-12 is the deepest conference of any this season. So it's kind of a flip of what we usually see. But, I mean, in the Big Ten, you got Michigan, you got Ohio State, you got Penn State, 3 top powers. And behind that, it's a lot of average. That's for sure. I mean, I've got Nebraska projected for 6. I've only got 6 teams projected for 7 or more wins this season at this point, which is definitely unusual. But Utah, I do think, could get to a better bowl game. But once again, the depth in the Pac-12. Wouldn't be surprised if Utah ended up in the Las Vegas Bowl, but still a good matchup. Hawaii Bowl, we got San Jose State and FAU. Quick Lane Bowl, I got Boise State flexing in for a Big Ten team. I've only got 9 teams projected for bowl games out of the Big Ten. That's pretty short numbers. So I do have Boise State flexing into the Quick Lane Bowl to take on Eastern Michigan. First Responder Bowl, we got Louisiana and New Mexico. Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Minnesota and Kansas State. Got Minnesota projected for 6. K-State projected for 8. So K-State would definitely be a favorite there, but still, it definitely makes sense at this current point. Military Bowl, we got James Madison and Navy. Mentioned how James Madison is currently, or is technically, ineligible, but because we might not have enough 6-6 teams, they could still get to bowl season, and I've got that being the case, flexing into the Military Bowl to take on Navy. Duke's Mail Bowl, we got Texas A&M and Duke. Aggies, they got projected for 7. Duke for 8. Holiday Bowl, we got Clemson and Oregon State. This one would have some storylines to it. Clemson being the team I got projected for 8, Oregon State for 9. You got DJ Uiagalelei taking on his former team with Oregon State, and that'd be a huge matchup there, and two pretty good football teams as well if it were to happen. Of course, Clemson, though, bit of a disappointment this season. Texas Bowl, we got Kentucky and BYU. Kentucky got projected for 7. I've got 4 teams out of the SEC projected for 7 right now. BYU, I've got them for 7 as well out of the Big 12. Fenway Bowl, we got Wake Forest and South Florida. I've got Wake Forest finding a way to get up to 6 wins and to take on South Florida in the Fenway Bowl. Pinstripe Bowl, we got Rutgers and NC State. Rutgers is a team that's already got 6 wins, but I've got them losing out their last 4 games. So I do have them at 6-6 still, but there is upside for them to get up to 7, maybe even 8 wins this season, which would be insane for Rutgers, that is for sure. NC State I got projected for currently 7 out of the ACC. And then you got Kansas and Notre Dame in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I got Notre Dame flexing into this one to take on Kansas. What a strange matchup that you would never expect in a high-level bowl game. But Notre Dame, I mean, they're flexing in here, and I do think they find a way to probably get up to 9 wins this season. And then Kansas, I've got them up to 8 as of right now. Alamo Bowl, we got Oklahoma State and USC. No one could have expected Oklahoma State to be potentially in this position, but I mean, you got Texas and Oklahoma, your 2 clear and away best teams in the Big 12. And otherwise, you got I've currently got Oklahoma State, Kansas, and K-State right behind them. But Oklahoma State has beaten both Kansas and K-State, so that would give them an advantage. And they could take on USC, a team I got projected for 9 in the Alamo Bowl. Gator Bowl, we got Missouri and Wisconsin. Mizzou I got projected for 9 now. Mizzou has had a really strong season, and Gator Bowl would make sense for them taking on a Wisconsin team I got projected for 8. Sun Bowl, we got UCLA and Miami. Bruins I've got at 9 wins, and then Miami I've got them at 8. This one would make sense. I mean, UCLA I've got them pretty much the worst. I mean, I've got 4 teams projected for 9 out of the Pac-12, and UCLA is kind of towards the back of that, but they'd probably be a favorite in a matchup against Miami. Liberty Bowl, we got Florida and West Virginia. Florida got projected for 7, West Virginia for 7 as well right now. Music City Bowl, Tennessee against Maryland. Tennessee got projected for 8, Maryland with 8 as well. And then Arizona Bowl, we got Fresno State and Miami, Ohio. Moving on to some of your higher-end bowl games, we got Iowa versus Ole Miss in the Citrus Bowl. I've got Iowa currently winning the West Division in the Big Ten, a division that's been a total shipwreck once again this season. But Iowa, I just feel like Wisconsin, it probably would be the favorite right now, considering Iowa just lost to Minnesota this past week. But at the same time, Wisconsin, with not having their starting quarterback anymore, and even Iowa's they don't have Cade McNamara anymore. So, I mean, both teams just have very low ceilings at this point. But I think Iowa finds a way to get to Indianapolis, and they end up with 9 wins this season to take on Ole Miss, a team that I think is pretty overlooked this season. They've been impressive this year. I've got them up to 10 wins heading into this bowl game, and they're definitely one of the best teams in the SEC. Relay Quest Bowl, we got North Carolina and LSU. North Carolina coming off of a brutal loss to Virginia this past week, but I do still have them projected for 9. They're not in the New Year's 6 projections anymore, but at least they can still get to a pretty decent bowl game against LSU, a team I got projected for 9, and LSU as well. They're kind of in the same boat as Ole Miss. I know Georgia and Alabama have all the attention right now, but Ole Miss and LSU not far behind. Cotton Bowl, we got Washington and Oklahoma. Washington, a team that I think is very much capable of winning out, getting to the college football playoff, but I do think they slip up a little bit down the stretch and end up in the Cotton Bowl, but still really nice bowl game to take on an Oklahoma team that I think ends up losing the Big 12 title game to Texas, which does force them out of college football playoff contention. But still, you got 2 of your better teams here that definitely are capable of still being in the college football playoff this season. Orange Bowl, we got Louisville and Penn State. I've now got Louisville making it to the ACC championship game. I got them losing to Florida State, but that still puts them in the Orange Bowl, a really good bowl game against a Penn State team that I do think finishes out 11-1 this season. I don't think they win the division. I think they beat Michigan down the stretch, actually. But Penn State for them, still a really good bowl game to take on Louisville in the Orange Bowl. Beach Bowl, we got Ohio State and Alabama. This one remains the same from last week. Alabama I've got losing in the SEC title game, but as the weeks go on, I mean, we'll see with Georgia down the stretch. I'm not totally sold on Georgia quite yet, so who knows? Alabama can still be a college football playoff team this season, but I think if this was a possibility, it would definitely happen. You got two teams, a rematch of a prior national championship just a couple of years ago, and Ohio State, one of the top powers in the Big Ten. Fiesta Bowl, we got Oregon and Tulane. I've got Tulane out of the group of 5 for the New Year's 6 bid right now. However, it definitely could be Air Force. I feel like Air Force or Tulane are your two main teams for that bid right now. But Oregon on the other side, this team I've got making it to the Pac-12 championship and beating Washington for it right now. So that probably would put Oregon as maybe the first team out of the college football playoff. That's definitely a possibility if that does happen, but there's still a 2-loss team, so that would probably keep them out of because I do think they take a loss down the stretch somewhere. So that put them in the Fiesta Bowl to take on a talented Tulane team. Now, if you're a college football playoff semifinals, we got Georgia and Michigan in the Rose Bowl. I've got Georgia at number 2 because I do think they lose some game down the stretch, probably to Tennessee, or possibly even in the SEC championship, and they still find a way into the playoff. Who knows? But I think Georgia ends up at number 2. And Michigan at number 3. Michigan wins the Big Ten. They do take a loss to Penn State down the stretch on the road, but they still find a way to win the Big Ten and get to the Rose Bowl to take on a Georgia team that has won back-to-back national championships. And then for the Sugar Bowl, we got Florida State at number 1. They're the one team that I've got now projected as undefeated heading into the college football playoff. I've got 3 one-loss teams in the playoff this season. As of right now, it sounds crazy, but it makes sense with the amount of depth there is in this college football season. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if this was the case. You got, I mean, at this point, there are 8 teams, probably 8 to 10 teams that can still win a national title this season. It's really up for grabs for anybody right now. And I've got Florida State at number 1, finishing out undefeated, winning the ACC, and getting to the Sugar Bowl to take on a Texas team that I think finds a way to win out, get to the Big 12 title game and win that, and be seeded number 4 in the college football playoffs. So with that, that's going to wrap it up for today. Obviously, it changes week after week. You never know what's going to happen. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on these projections, and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.